problem with cluster munitions is dud rate, because these munitions drop large numbers of what are bomblets. Depending on how they land, some of them don't go off and will hang around, and that number is anywhere from 2% on up, depending on the terrain. And civilians can happen upon these duds, and they can cause civilian casualties. What happens is that a projectile will let these bomblets loose up in the air, so the bomblets spread out over an area and go off like hand grenades all over a large area, and that spreads out the weapon's effects. That's why they're so good to attack areas. And classic targets would be infantry, because infantry typically spreads out, artillery positions, and vehicle convoys. One argument is that the Ukrainians are on the defensive, so there is not a moral equivalency here between the Russians, what the Russians are doing, and what the Ukrainians are doing to defend themselves. U.S. inventories of other munitions are already very low. We've given about as much as we can, so there really isn't an alternative out there now. But the other one is that these munitions are just very effective, much more effective than regular artillery against certain kinds of targets. And now with the Ukrainian offensive not doing as well as people had hoped, they need a boost, and this could provide that boost. There have been a number of members of Congress and many humanitarian organizations that have raised concerns and opposed the transfer. The Biden administration has been quite emphatic about its reasons for doing this, and it has a very strong consensus on Capitol Hill, both Democrats and Republicans, that we need to send these munitions, that we need to do more. So, well, most of our allies have signed the convention prohibiting these weapons. On the other hand, most of them have also been urging the United States to support Ukraine and have supported increased aid to Ukraine. So I think that they are muting their reservations about transferring these weapons at this time and under these circumstances. Well, what the Ukrainians have to do is to be careful where they use these weapons and to avoid using them in villages, for example, because you also get very high dud rates in built up areas. They're much better in open areas. So I would hope that that insight, that targeting advice has gone along with the weapons. There's no such thing as a game-changing weapon. We keep hoping that there's some munition or some weapon that we can provide the Ukrainians that will produce victory. You hear that back when there were discussions on Patriot, when there were discussions about tanks, and discussions about F-16s, and now cluster munitions. On the other hand, all of these weapons are useful. They're all effective on the battlefield. They will all help Ukraine in its struggle, but no single weapon is going to produce victory.